Signore e signori, abbiamo più influenza, sui cui figli di te, Molly amiamo creato e iniziato da New Jersey. Last week today lived, presentato da Fantastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Hey everybody. I don't think anybody's here yet. I see our guest is backstage. We actually have a couple guests today that are off screen. As you can see, I am not in my basement, nor do I have my hat on, because I was running around a little bit this morning, and we just finished eating. Well, I finished eating, and my little guy, MT, want to say hi? His mouth is full. Is having his first egg and cheese bagel with a little bit of salt, pepper, ketchup, a Jersey staple here. No Taylor ham. He's a little too young for Taylor ham. So he's enjoying that. And my wife may chime in. I'm saying may, just because that's how it typically goes. But welcome back to the show. It's been an interesting couple weeks here. We're going to get all into that. Just want to wait a few more minutes so people can trickle in. And it's a gorgeous day out today, at least here in North Jersey. I don't know what else other people might have going on throughout other areas of the country here. But here we go. Enjoying that, pal? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring our guest on. So I didn't really know what to talk about today, to be honest with you, as I typically don't. I have not purchased new comics in quite a while. I think I'm going to go maybe 2 weeks, maybe end of April. We'll see, and finally get my pulls, and then we're going to sort out exactly what the next chapter is as far as collecting goes. Hey, madam, how are you? Madam says hi, honey.
Hi.
She says hi. I think you could hear her. Want to say hi? Okay, close enough. So one thing though that did catch my eye, and hey Brian Linguini Clam Sauce, waiting for the Doctor issue number 2 to come out soon. Happy to be part of that project too. Kingdom of Nerds, how are you? So as I was saying, I haven't read new comics in a while. I have not watched Daredevil yet. We are still catching up to season 1. Yet my wife was double checking. So I'm probably going to be the last channel that talks about Daredevil, if we do. Brian says hi to everybody.
Hello.
Say hi to Brian. Okay. And
He's looking like
one thing I did watch a little bit at work, and then I caught I watched, let's say this, a little bit of the 3-hour stream, and then I just waited until the end when they just did the same thing in 3 minutes of the Avengers Doomsday announcement. So it's like, let's talk about that. And I want to bring on with me right now, coming to the stage, a gentleman who many of you know. I think he is probably the best reviewer on YouTube, in my opinion here. Although he hasn't really reviewed comics in a while, he's always very insightful. And I'll say this, the Stephen King group that we were in, I feel like the level of participation and discussion that he fostered there was on par with, and in many cases better than college courses I had way back in the day. So that being said, let's bring on, hold on, Mr. Mike, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How you doing?
I almost kicked you by accident because I have big fingers and a small screen.
I would have came back. It's all right.
And Mr. Trev just joined us as well. Trev, happy belated once again, sir. I hope Whataburger did something special for you. They should.
All right.
So let me ask you, Mike. Did you watch the stream or did you watch the?
I did. I did both, and I've gone back and looked at it. Not the whole 5-hour thing, but the sped up. I tuned in and out. I didn't watch the whole thing concurrently. I had it in the background, like going. So I mean, it got my watch time or whatever. But like, after the first 2 reveals, I kind of saw what they were doing as far as the format. So I kind of just waited the 15 minutes and then I beat back in.
Yeah, it was weird. It started, and I was at work. I just kind of had it playing. I need to play something at work just to focus, just so I could at least listen. And I went into a meeting, and I was gone for like an hour, and I came back, and the DJ Lynx's IG group, the Lynx Squad, there were like 82 messages. I was like, what the hell's going on? And it was just, yeah, every minute it's like, oh wow, this is coming in a row. They're gonna do this, or they're gonna mess this up, you know. But it's just like, wow, they really figured out how to milk this. Do you think they not necessarily needed to make the announcement, but do you think they really needed to stretch it out over 5 hours?
No. But, okay, there is a high note to that because I don't know about you, but people that tuned in live, you could see like the numbers of how many were watching.
Mm-hmm.
And about halfway through, there was like 5.5 million people watching that 5 hours of the cast reveal. I think
Wow.
in total, like currently, it's sitting at around, like last time I looked at it, it was like 7.5 million. So I mean, that whole like superhero fatigue, and this is only for comic book people. Those numbers show that it's a little more than that. I wouldn't say significant. It wasn't like a billion or anything, but you know, that people are still interested in these kind of, you know, news and stuff like that. I'm not so big into casting news. With Marvel, I am, because it's a little different when you talk about casting news from everything else. Everything else, it's like rumored when we're at casting news because it can change, fluctuate, you know, depending on what happens with the film. MCU, it's a little different because it's kind of, you know, once we get the casting, it's kind of like this is a determined thing. You know, we are going to see these people in the film, but Marvel has pulled some shenanigans in the back, you know.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, because a lot of people, especially when they showed pretty much all the Thunderbolts are back, they're like, oh, so they just ruined that movie. I was like, well,
they are missing one.
Yeah.
They're missing Taskmaster, which I know nobody really cares about. Okay, so another thing I want to highlight is they already stated that this was half the list.
Yeah.
This isn't the complete list, and like because they said it was supposed to be doubled in Endgame, and I don't remember how many, you know, characters were in Endgame, but I want to say in the high 30s, high 40s, and they said that this was supposed to be double that. So I mean, just off this list, you know, I mean, and not only that, but there's so many major people that we know are going to be in this movie that aren't on the list yet, you know.
But yeah, at the same time too, I was thinking about, yeah, they announced the actors, they didn't necessarily announce the roles. I mean, we know Downey Jr. is going to be Doom. While I don't think that they're going to turn heel with everybody, I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of those people are like, oh no, you know him as Cyclops in this universe, but in another universe he's Captain Britain or something, for example.
I could actually see them doing that, like, and it's very plausible because we have, I mean, they played with that in Deadpool and Wolverine with the Human Torch versus him being Captain America thing. You know, it wasn't so far outlandish because he had been both characters, but.
Who are you anticipating that they haven't announced yet?
Some of the bigger players, like, it's kind of mind-boggling that we didn't get the known Avengers that are still out there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, understandably, Cap is old at this time, but we still have, you know, Hulk running around with his son. We can, you know, the Hulk thing kind of, it really throws me off, you know. I want to say, for me, the list was more like why versus like, you know, excitement. I'm going to say I'm excited for these movies, and because the Russos are behind it, you know, those were the more successful, you know, MCU movies were the ones they directed. So I want to say hopefully it's them coming back, but not just coming back, but hopefully trying to, you know, formulate the MCU or whatever.
Brian just asked a question. Yeah, no Tom Holland yet.
No Tom Holland.
I'd be surprised if he's not in this one.
Yeah, don't quote me on it because I'm, you know, I remember they announced like Fantastic Four is on the list. There was some names I was happy to see. Was Namor was one of them. I'm happy we're gonna get him back because even though I wasn't a big fan of that movie, I still do like his version and the actor that played him. Even though there's a lot of stigma, you know, related to him in real life, I don't
Yeah.
really care. I did like his portrayal kind of thing. Um, I want to say like that those are the biggest surprises were the ones that where we've known the MCU has focused on them a lot, like Hulk, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. I mean, we're not talking about these were like just like sideline characters that were briefly touched. No, these were like main plot line. I mean, we're talking about Doctor Strange was so prevalent. He was crossing over to different movies and stuff.
Well,
Um,
I know that, and this I actually believe. Doctor Strange, who's the actor? Benedict Cumberbatch said, I think just like 6 months or so ago, he's not in this one, but he's very prominently in the follow up. So I'd imagine that we're probably going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him here, but he's heavy. Maybe they introduce like another Doctor Strange movie or have him in another one of the MCU movies in between this and the follow up.
I can get behind a storyline because we've already done that since the beginning of the MCU, but not
Yeah.
so much a storyline. But I can get behind a storyline where like the explanation of like half our known heroes are just not there, because we've been witnessing that the whole MCU timeline. Like, I mean, most of these shows slash movies take place in New York, where the heroes are heavily represented, yet we don't run into them as much as they should be, kind of thing. Um, it's like it was that big question before we got Captain America. Brave New World was like, where was everybody during the Eternal thing?
Hmm.
No, so I'm more online with us getting because kind of the way I'm seeing this movie is Avengers Doomsday and then Secret Wars are kind of a part one, part two, even though they haven't labeled them like that. I feel like this is going to be a massive setup for Secret Wars, not entirely because I want to assume a big majority of the movie is going to explain the Tony Stark Doom, um, revelation thing. I want to believe they're going to play with that,
Yeah.
but I want to say like if this is the whole casting and there is no part two, which I mean they already said there was, but let's just say this is all the casting we're going to get. I can get behind a story that's written well that explains why these are the heroes we get. Hey, Doctor Strange is on some mission. I mean that happens all the time in the comics.
Hmm.
Um, because we do know the last I can remember of Hulk, he was going with the son back to Scar. Like, I'm trying to remember like the exact moment because Doctor Strange had went with I don't know who her character was, but the Charlize Theron character at the
Oh,
end of that.
it was Clara. Clara. Can't think
I
of her
don't know.
name. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that character, but I do know that they like portal out of there. So I
Clea.
mean, Clea, that's right.
Yeah.
You're right. But technically, like I want to assume that a lot of these, like the Agatha Harkness, like that they do have like a strong explanation on why they're not there, kind of thing. Maybe.
I think a couple things you said. First of all, I think Hulk has to be in this. There's a couple big kind of dangling storylines with him that needs to be wrapped up. One thing that occurred to me, I think it was last week. Um, the last time we saw Hulk and Black Widow together was in Age of Ultron, because then Hulk went off planet, she died, and they never saw each other during Infinity War or whatnot. Hey, Cliff, how are you? Thanks for coming in. I think we need to see just not a main story, but even like a B or C line story where Hulk is now back on Earth, and they had a good connection in Age of Ultron. There's a degree of loss that he's experiencing, because oh yeah, she's dead, and I kind of flew off to space. I also think that they haven't even attempted to address at the beginning of She-Hulk when they were just attacked by aliens, and I honestly figured they'd be addressing that during Secret Invasion, But it's like, no, they just got attacked by aliens. That's all you need to know now.
I mean, I want to assume there's like 7 or 8 plot threads that we haven't seen, progression to, but I want to assume that some of the casting is some of those story threads, like 3 of them that I can think of, because the whole Beast and Photon end credit scene, because we saw Kelsey Grammer's coming back as Beast. For me, that was probably the biggest surprise out of the whole casting list, is we still are getting like the Fox version of the X-Men and not like brand new versions of the MCU's X-Men kind of thing. Like, and my whole interpretation of Deadpool and Wolverine was like, that was like a goodbye to all those Fox characters. Like, hey, we might be keeping, like, I can understand keeping like Gambit and a couple handpicked, but like, I don't get, I mean, the only other thing I can think of is they're just fodder for this movie, and then they're dying off, and maybe we might see new versions, which I don't think that's going to happen either.
Now, some people have said, "Oh, well, you know what this is? Maybe this is going to be an Avengers versus X-Men film." I hope that's not the case, and I don't get that sense. One thing that
I get that.
One thing that kind of confused me with the Fox version was in the Fox MCU, we saw Xavier die technically. Let's see, X3, but he got better kind of at the end of that movie. He didn't die in the last trilogy. Yeah, you're right, twice, and then in Logan. So, where in the progression of the Fox MCU, if it is the same Fox universe, is this Xavier from?
Where is this pulled from? Yeah. I mean, there could be a couple different explanations behind that. Like, it could be like how we got the Illuminati version and that other.
We saw that one die too. Yeah.
I mean, I could get behind a whole bunch of explanations on this and that. My thing is, like, I mean, a lot of the Fox characters are in the void. Like, they weren't just on different Earths. That they were in the Lost. Like. I mean, I feel like a lot of this is story explainable, can be story explainable, depending on who's doing the story.
Yeah. A movie explaining. That's funny. Yeah, and you mentioned Deadpool and Wolverine. I was one of the first people. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was one of those big advocates saying, "Hey, they're using the Avengers Time Runs Out storyline from before Secret Wars," and it kind of wasn't that, but it was, but it wasn't. But I was pleased with how they did it. That being said, that's why I have a sense that I don't think these are that same batch of characters necessarily. Yeah, because even in that universe, Magneto was dead. Now that I come to think of it.
And the way it looks like, it's not like we're in the Fox universe. It specifically looks like the X-Men Fox universe.
Yeah.
There's like other questions. Like, I'm thrilled that we're getting, I can't remember the actor's name offhand, bad with names, but the guy who played Nightcrawler from like X2.
Alan Cumming. He
I love Alan. He was all happy and everything, but like, why are we going back to that version where we ended with like the younger versions in Phoenix? And so, like, why aren't they using, like, why are we going back to the X1, 2, 3 movies, like, versus the newer ones, like water?
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't think about that until you said it just now.
Another thing is, I mean, there's no like, Jennifer Garner as Elektra. There's no like Wesley Snipes as Blade. No, it was just the X-Men.
Yeah, and my sense is that I don't. If I had to guess, I don't think we'll see Gardner or Blade back.
I'm hoping for Secret Wars. I was hoping for Secret Wars. They were going to try and bring a piece of like everything Marvel's touched, kind of like how they did with Into the Spider-Verse, because that was one of the things that the high praise I think I can say for Into the Spider-Verse. The biggest thing for me was all the different cameos that they pulled, and you're talking about comic, animation, movie, So my version of Secret Wars is something like that, or hopefully,
Yeah, I tend to think that that's pretty likely. Um, where they pull from though is kind of a thing. I think they're going to get Nicolas Cage in there because I think he's Cage. I haven't been up on Nicolas Cage. I don't know if he's more about money or doing the roles, though he is a big comic fan, so we got that going for us, I guess. So I tend to think, wow, you're thirsty, kid. Sorry, the son is drinking his water at the same time. You want more? Yeah. I
I can
think that.
say I don't know because I know he does a lot of movies, but he's also like an in between. He has good movie repertoire, and then he has bad movie repertoire, and he is a comic book fan. But as far as I
Yeah.
know, they haven't reached out or anything. The last I saw, they were looking at like Keanu Reeves for Ghost Rider or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to take a lot of that with a grain of salt. Like I can't stand, like, I don't know, the channels that they're not speculating. There's a difference between what we're doing and you have these kind of slicker kind of corporate channels like, oh, this is just releases that Null is going to be a variant of Kang and he'll be in. I think the last time it was like, oh, he'll definitely be in the Ant-Man film. And it's like, you're just making up stuff. It reminds me of The Simpsons where Homer just makes up a website and makes up gossip, but I'm not going to go on that tangent. Um, Bruce, Kingdom of Nerds, when I could speak English, actually just brings up a good
Bruce.
point. The multiverse storyline needs to die. They just haven't done the multiverse justice.
I agree with both Bruce and Cliff. Like, it's not that I'm tired of the multiverse. That the problem is that they just haven't done them like, either to your imagination's liking or I would say successfully. They've been okay, but I mean, for me, it's just been like fanfare. It hasn't been
Yeah.
like story engaging, and now it's getting to the point where like, not only is it crossing all mediums because we have it in like comics, and comics is they're way overdoing it with the different verses. Um,
Mm-hmm.
no, but then it's like they do it in animations and games. I mean, we just got Neighborhood Spider-Man, the show that's supposed to be like a separate thing. And it starts off episode 1 like into the multiverse,
Mm-hmm.
like um at this point, it's like it's just one of those tropes that we're going to see that was a good, 15 to 10-year stretch within storytelling that was like overly used for no reason.
Yeah, and I think it's just the type of, just like you said, I think that in terms of Marvel, I kind of feel like they've half-assed the multiverse, and I think that's a little bit of, well, how do we translate it to screen without being too goofy? And I think they haven't really kind of found their niche there yet. I mean, yeah, Spider Verse did it the best. You said it yourself. I still, thinking of DC, I still haven't watched Flash, but I'm hearing that was kind of where the multiverse fatigue started setting in.
I like Flash, but again, another example, a specific example where we didn't really need it in that movie. Like I get the use of it, but again, just fanfare stuff. And that's been that new gimmick. Like let's get y'all with nostalgia, baby. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's bring in Michael Keaton Batman. Let's bring in I mean that's been Hollywood's kick to like get people to either watch shows. No, I can't even say shows because they haven't really done it so much in shows, but more so with movies. Is
Mm-hmm.
let's take something that's 20 years ago or 30 years ago and bring it back in your face. And somehow they think that gets people. I mean, it has. I mean, I'm not going
Yeah.
to say it hasn't, but
Do you want more? Yeah. Okay. Do you want milk?
my thing is you're doing this fanfare like that. Like I'd prefer to see like fanfare from the comics. Like I'd say give us more. I understand the MCU is its own thing and it's supposed to be different and blah blah blah. It has been the whole time, but give us some Easter eggs, give us some nods in that regard.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think that, and you just said it. Sorry, my son's getting active. What's up, pal? You want to say hi?
He wants the bagel.
You want to eat more bagel? Oh, sorry. The kid's having his first bagel with egg and cheese, salt, pepper, ketchup, and he's hooked. um, but yeah, I do think it is strictly fanfare. As much as I liked the Deadpool and Wolverine film, I kept looking at it from the perspective of, you know what? For the first time, I feel like if you weren't aware of everything else, if you didn't watch Loki, if you didn't watch the prior Fox films, you're going to be like, I don't no idea what's going on. And I think that's the danger that you run into when you're going through these different multiverses. And yeah, Cliff, you're 100% right. There are ways to do things tastefully.
Yeah, I agree.
Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's really hit on that yet. I'm hoping the Russos are able to pull it off with Secret War.
I think the biggest issue is like where the passion line and who has control of these projects that we're getting. You know, it's like,
yeah,
and I understand that you can be, you know, because we see that on YouTube that there's not just one type of comic collector. You have some that are just after keys, some that value the values, some that are after art, the stories, the whole comic in general. You know, I want to assume that it's like that. That like you know a lot of the you know during this time frame because there was a brilliant MCU time frame, and we knew who was in charge during that time and who started it and who had the passion for it. And then it goes into this like cash cow era of the MCU, and it's like honestly, it's like who was in charge at that time might have had a passion to one degree for these comics and these storylines, but maybe not on all degree, you know. And you know, and
yeah,
we've seen some of those passionate people because like James Gunn, you know, started out just doing Guardians of the Galaxy, going through his whole debacle between 2 and 3, had like the majority of the cast leaving because they you know they canned him. Now he's one of the presidents at DC, and he's charging the you know the gun universe. I mean, for me, that you know that it's not more like signs of like, oh, this guy's just after power. No, it's like, you know, he's been on the inside trying to make the passionate, you know, comic book
mm-hmm.
movies that he wanted to do and kept getting put down. And now he's in a place where he can do that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's for Marvel, we just need to get those few people in there that like for instance, they're doing Daredevil. Like, was the person that did Daredevil? I mean, were they a Daredevil fan? Had they read the source? You know, because I find that so strange when you hear these reports of like they didn't read the source, like, or they read like 1 or 2 of the issues, like, you know, and then you hear cases like Bernthal, and Bernthal is like passionately beloved by tons of fans, like, you know, him portraying Punisher. And guess what? He read a lot of the comics. Like, I'm not 100% that he read like the whole but I can remember that day that he got cast. He went to a comic shop and he just like loaded up on Punisher comics. You know, he wanted to be. I mean, to me, that's that's acting. Like, if I was to take a role about a pizza delivery guy, you know, and I had never worked as a pizza delivery driver, I'd imagine I'd have to, you know, kind of either investigate how that operates or actually work as a, you know, I mean,
I just imagine you're working in a slow little comic shop somewhere. I mean, Berthel probably just went to Midtown or something, but imagine you're just working into Midtown, or you're working at a little slow shop or something. You look up and you see John Berthel there. It's like, I need all your Punishers now.
And then right after he had done The Walking Dead as Shane, you know how big he was during that time, like, and he walks into a store and he's just asking for all the you know Punisher books you can find, and they're like, I think Benedict Cumberbatch. Nah, I'm sorry for the but he did something similar where he went and got
Yeah.
like a lot of comics, and but I mean honestly, I can kind of see that in those roles. Like I can actually see, you know, like he plays Doctor Strange like extremely well. Like at this point, I couldn't imagine anybody else playing Doctor Strange kind of thing.
You know who I always thought would be a good Doctor Strange? Right around the time they were trying to cast him, and what's his face? Joaquin Phoenix fell out. You remember Justin Theroux?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he would have been a great Doctor Strange.
I could go
If
for him.
yeah, if you've seen that HBO series, he was on the Leftovers. I still hadn't watched the final season, but
I did.
yeah, he was very intense in that. And I think it could have worked.
Leftovers is tough, man. I like cold stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, but there are some castings that we've gotten that like I'm like, ooh, like I could really change that casting, but there's some others, and it's really due to the actor's portrayal of that character.
Let me ask you a little bit of a different topic on this. One thing that I've seen the MCU do, and in most cases do pretty well, is if they mess up, if something got messed up, like for example, the Mandarin, in a future film, they do their best to kind of course correct it.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you think should be or which one?
That needs course correcting at this point?
That needs to, or that you'd appreciate?
I think so I actually enjoyed this movie, but I want to say, I think we've all heard the same, like, honest review from people with the Eternals. And not just the Eternals, but like the Inhumans, the Eternals. There's a couple others that just weren't portrayed well, or and that's like, I like the Eternals because I'm not very well versed with the Eternals. For me, it was a brand, and it was engaging enough where it got me to read, like, where they started and stuff like that. But if I had, like, honestly, if I had to pick like a redo kind of thing like they did with Mandarin, I'd kind of go with the Eternals, and not so much the cast. I enjoyed the cast. It's really just story topic,
Yeah. I liked Eternals more than most, because to be honest with you, I think that was the last time. One of the things that stuck out to me with the MCU films in general, leading up to Eternals, is that what was unique is that Marvel seemed to either pull off like, hey, this is a superhero film, but it's also this type of movie. Like, if you look at Winter Soldier, it's like, hey, this is a superhero film, but it's also like a John Grisham, kind of Jack Reacher. Yeah. And they managed to do that well up until, Eternals was the last one I thought that they were trying to do it. I felt like, oh, this is like a superhero Gone with the Wind. Yeah. But I feel like if they had cut out, and this is going to sound ridiculous, if they cut out a lot of the stuff with the deviants, I feel like it would have been a better movie. Yeah, and it's like, I say that knowing that you need an antagonist, but I feel like it kind of dragged it, and then they added the silly things like, oh, let's have a meal, and hey, you could be the new Captain America. Like, okay, yeah, I know why you added that on. You added it on for the commercial.
I'm trying to think, but I think I agree with Cliff that those were probably the last two, like, drama-filled, like, movies, like serious. Well, Captain America Brave New World was like that too.
I didn't see Brave New World yet, to be honest with you, but
it is like that. It's more like story. I mean, there's a lot of action in it, but it is more story-driven, like a cinematic telling. Yeah, because I can agree, because I did enjoy the Marvels, but the Marvels is more like fun and games. I want to, okay, so if I really had to pick, and this is like how I do it, because you have to think of what they did with the Mandarin, because I actually liked the original version, like Ben Kingsley as Mandarin, and I actually liked the story that they gave us to explain that wasn't. I actually loved all that. Like, I liked him as the fake Mandarin, and I kind of like the Shang-Chi version of the Mandarin that we got, So if I had to do that with something, and there's one that's like belovedly hated, I enjoyed, like, I want to say 80% of this movie, it would be Thor: Love and Thunder. And Thor: Love and Thunder, look, here's the way you do it, because most people forget this, and I try to protect the movie as best I can, because I love Taika Waititi. Okay, so the movie is told in Korg's perspective. So why not just give us Thor's perspective, or different characters' perspective, and instead of titling it Thor: Love and Thunder. Just
Yeah,
give us the title from the comics.
I don't agree with you there. I'll be honest with you. I feel like Love and Thunder had too many issues to even to just in my book, and it was a shame because I think there was a lot they could have done with gore. Maybe that's something they could revisit in Secret Wars. I do agree with you on Iron Man 3. To be honest with you, it was in general a movie I enjoyed. I did love the Mandarin twist. I think the major problem with that is they didn't have enough time as Tony Stark as Iron Man. It was more Tony Stark on his own, and because he was not in the suit that much, I think it felt like an old school 80s action film. And I think that's what kind of threw people off.
So I loved the first two Iron Man. To me, they're some of the best MCU movies to date. Like, even though I know Iron Man 2 is kind of give or take, I love part 2. Specifically Whiplash. I love Mickey Rourke. Okay, but like Iron Man 3, I did love. My problem with 3 was more bad guy focused, and it was the extremist, and they just, as far as like, and we got a cool final fight with all the different suits and everything, but as far as like it being a cool villain, like, nah, that's where the loss for that movie, because I actually enjoyed all the Tony Stark detective stuff with the Mandarin, and I actually liked all that.
Excuse me 1 second. You want your milk?
You good?
No,
hey, lady.
You don't want milk? You want to just get down?
And I love the Marvels. Honestly, that's the Marvel movie. That's the scene out of the Marvels that I would cut. Is what Caroline's like. Yay! I like the one. I like the Flurkins. I like the design.
No,
I think
you don't want to get down.
I did not like that story choice. That this is how we're gonna save everybody. I mean, it's a story choice, but for me, like writing that scene, I don't know if that's what I would have chose.
Sorry, Mike. Give me a second.
No, you're good.
You like,
to me, it leaned too far into the cat humor.
Marvels, to be honest with you, I so wanted to like it. The problem is I don't know if it got rushed. I don't know if it was reshoots. It felt like it was two different movies, and it felt like they needed some of the things they needed to really give attention to. They failed on. For example, the first 20 minutes or so, don't quote me on that because I only saw it once, the Skrulls are dead, and it has the Skrull world is attacked, and it has absolutely zero impact. It's like, wait, hold on a second, what happened? And it was, to me, a real big failure that they just didn't build these things up. And it was a shame because the villain, I still can't remember the villain's name. That actress did a really great job in that role, but unfortunately, because it didn't have the attention, it just kind of fell flat and just kind of forgotten.
I liked her acting, and I didn't mind like who she. To me, she's one of my least favorite villains, just because it's really like her story relation. She just wasn't that impressive. Like, oh, I'm just gonna go around and steal the things I need for my planet. Like,
okay.
I mean, you're a glorified bank robber, basically.
That's true. Yeah. But
I
even what's her face?
Darbin. Darbin.
Even Rambeau's character, I felt like she was two different roles. Halfway through in the first half of the film, she's very serious and tough, and then you get to that awkward kind of midway point in the film, and all of a sudden she's like hanging out and chilling. Oh, these are my best buds. It was like two different characters. It's like I feel like there was like another 20 minutes that they dropped somewhere.
So you were right in the beginning with both. It did have reshoots, and originally it was kind of like they pieced together like two different. It wasn't the first one that suffered from that. I think Widow was the first one that suffered from that, like the reshoots. But
see, look, every movie has reshoots. I understand that. Yeah.
So the reshoots I remember from the Marvels specifically dealt with the villain. Like, she was supposed to have a different track. She was supposed to have like a different like reason why she was going after, and it was more relation to that the nickname that they kept calling her, the Devastator, or whatever that I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
The Annihilator or whatever. I think it was Annihilator. But and you can see pieces of like the original storyline that they were trying to do, and it was more like, I think her original storyline was just she had a jealousy track because she was supposed to be the lover of Ronan from, and but like it did not. I don't know. Supposedly
Yeah.
that's what I remember the reshoots were around.
See, Widow, I think, suffered from two major problems. Widow, to be honest with you, for me was one of the first that just kind of fell flat, like it was just there. I don't understand how you spent really from Iron Man 2 on building this up as though the Black Widow, she's special, she's got these things, and it's, oh, by the way, we have like 100 widows. Okay, so why is this one special? Because by making it that she's part of this big thing and not really making her distinguishable, you kind of really took away from the character. The other thing that I thought was a major miss and could have saved the Black Widow for me, that we had heard up until Avengers the whole time her and Hawkeye were talking, oh, I have a lot of red in my ledger. I have done a lot of bad things in my history. What would have made more sense, because this is a story from her past, is if she revealed that before she blew up that building, she knew that the guy's daughter was there. She just didn't care. And that would have, I think, added a whole different layer to the character. I could see where people are like, well, but then that means she was a villain. It's like, yeah, well, back then she said, I didn't do a lot of good things. And I think that would have given a whole different layer of responsibility as well with Taskmaster.
I actually really enjoyed Widow. For me, Widow, like, that was the weakest version, but I still enjoyed Taskmaster. Like, it wasn't the version I wanted, and I know some people were like majorly upset, but to me, I want to say she was a little less disappointing than some of the other versions of characters we got. Like, and I'm looking at the leader right now, even though you haven't seen it. Like, and some people liked his version, but there has been for me some misses and pluses to DMC versions of the way they look, kind of thing.
And I get it. You can't have all the characters. You can't have the characters look just like the comics, just for a few different reasons.
Some of them, it's like, do we want that? Like, I wouldn't want Hawkeye running around and it's like with the big thing.
Yeah. Look at, if you remember, what's his face? My brain is not here today. Guardians of the Galaxy. Star-Lord's like adopted father. I can't think of his name. Blue skin.
Oh, Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm drawing. Yondu.
Yondu, yeah. Look up Yondu's original. I don't know if it's the original, but like the '90s thing. It's like, yeah.
He looks more like somebody straight out from like a sci-fi Robin Hood. The cast is all like, yeah, I know. I'm
I know. Here's the thing. I don't get to watch Cliff as often as I want to, but when I do watch Cliff, I love that he speaks with a passion and that cadence. And every time I see Cliff type, just in my brain, I could just see him go, Yondu.
I do.
Right. Yeah.
I do that with all these people. Like Lady, I can hear her yelling at me. I can hear Cliff yelling at me.
But I wanted to say something on Lady, and thank you for coming here too, Lady. I was reading, she had a comment, well, don't you know Weapon X? There's hundreds of different Weapon X characters, but X is the special one.
29.
I would argue, what?
There's 29 programs.
Yeah.
There's 26 for the alphabet, and then there's like 0, 1.
Whenever they want to sell a book, there's a new one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say the distinction between Weapon X and with the Widow program is that each Weapon X weapon or character is distinctly different. Wolverine is a lot different than Deadpool. Phantom X is different from everybody, and Captain America and so forth. Yeah, Maverick. Whereas I would buy that if they said, well, there's all these Black Widows, but this one is special because of boom. That's what I'm looking for with the Black Widows. But hey,
I could
Roscoe,
agree with that.
how you doing,
Because
sir?
but that kind of, I mean, because the widows kind of remind me of the hand, and they're just, I would even put like the widows next to the secret programs because honestly, I don't know. I mean, to me they just fit and they make sense. I don't like there being like specialities in the widow programs. It's more like because the way I see Black Widow is she's more a failure, right? Because her programming didn't take, and
Yeah,
same thing with like White Widow down the line. But I
and I
see them
do.
more as like the hand and the order and the fist and stuff like that. Like
There's a good joke in there somewhere. It's just not coming to me right now. The hand, the order, the fist. I don't know.
Yellow Claw and the fist.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's like with me, and 'cause that's I can remember being an X-Men fan growing up, and you learn about like the government's like the weapon programs, and at first most everybody it's like Weapon X, and then
Mhm.
I forget what weapon number Maverick was, but we get his weapon. It's like right in the beginning, like especially in the 90s, we learned of like three right then in the beginning that was a part of the weapons program. To me, that made sense. Like I was like, all right, we got mutants running around. The government knows about these mutants, and they're trying to make their own or better, controllable versions. Like yes, that made 100%. The stretch for me is these whole like secret societies running around in the mark because it's like the Service Society and AIM and Shield and
Mhm.
it's like all these like secret society. I mean, and I think at Marvel I can think of like maybe like 20 of them, and that's including like the Widow program and the
Yeah.
hand. But it's it always amazes me how many of these like super society are out there in the Marvel world.
I could see them at some point turning around and being like, all these secret societies, whether they understand it or know it or not, are actually just tied to one big overarching society that nobody knows about. Like I could see Hickman doing something like that.
Do you remember the Warriors movie? Come out to play.
Honest, I'd never seen it. It was a little bit
Okay,
before
so
my
the
time, but
premise the premise of that movie is something. It's one of the things I love because it's loosely based off of 300 and that the battle with Thermopylae. Okay, so like the beginning of the movie is like this one gang lord is trying to like connect all the known gangs in New York at that time, and he's trying to do it using math and numbers to convince everybody to join him, kind of thing.
Mhm.
I could see that being like an awesome storyline within Marvel, where like this one gang member comes together and connects all these secret societies that are out there, and they just go ham on the heroes and villains. Like,
Mm. Here you go, ladies impressed. Let me ask you: do you is what character that going back to Doomsday has not been announced yet? That if they were announced, you'd be like, "All right, that's awesome."
I'd say it would. They've already surprised me by giving us Namor, like to that regard, because there's some of these offshoots that we've gotten recently that I didn't think we were going to see again. Like Scar, I'd be surprised. It's like She-Hulk. I'd be more like in the excitement if we actually got more inclusion with the MCU like TV shows, like if there was Moon Knight, like Isaac Hayes was going to reprise his role, or Werewolf by Night, or all the little like She-Hulk, Daredevil, any of those castings I think I'd go nuts for, or like I'd actually be pretty impressed if they did that, like, and I don't know why they're not, but okay.
I think they got to get Moon Knight in there, and I like that would be, I think, the big get with the cast announcements. She-Hulk, I heard a rumor that somebody's saying, "Oh, she might be coming back to it," even though her and Marvel.
So
Oh,
there
you
was
read the same one?
well, there was concept art that was leaked, and I think it was like 7 like artist renderings of specifically Doomsday. It's already been debunked, which that doesn't really like say anything because stuff has been debunked before and still like turned out in the movie. But supposedly the Russo brothers stated that it was just art that they were going through. But I'm referring to the medieval looking, like supposedly like
I do
you know
remember that one.
like they're supposed to like the version of Doom we were supposed to be getting is like this like medieval version, and then in those concept art they do show like Hulk, Scar, She-Hulk, like characters that haven't been casted yet, kind of stuff. I I'd be really surprised if we saw like, and I kind of want that. Like, I want to see Miss Marvel. Like, I'd
Mhm.
like her and Captain Marvel. Like, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, you're talking about how big Captain Marvel is as far as like weaponized powerhouse. Like, they've used her. Like, and she's not in the lead casting or
Yeah,
Miss Marvel, because at this point there was a lot of story funneling for Miss Marvel. I mean, she got a show and an inclusion in the movie. Um,
later,
it's been
Roscoe. Yeah, the rumor I had heard was just this past week that they are hypothesizing. I can't think of her name. The actress who played She-Hulk has made up with Marvel and is coming back to it because she was supposed to be at some con in England and she canceled, and it happens to be around the same time they're that they are filming it. I don't know if they started filming or if they're just getting ready to. And I mean, it's a stretch. It sounds like a stretch to me, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, well, Brie boys don't like her. I love Brie.
Yeah, I think she's great. Yeah, and I think that she kind of got a lot of undue hate. Whether that affected the film or not, I'm sure on some level it did. But
I mean, it seems like we're just struggling with the whole like separation between artist and the person, and that's carrying over to movies nowadays.
yeah,
I can guarantee you, like a lot of these like the highly diverse movies that are getting like low critic reviews and high audience, that's exactly what it is. It's like, and all it takes is a person to come out and discriminate or talk about politics or their love of religion. It's like all of a sudden, oh, I hate that actor. Ew, they're
yeah.
horrible. Like, ugh. Like,
But I mean, at the same time, I think that like, well, no, actually, it's exactly what you said. I mean, Brie Larson shared her political views, and that's fine. I
the
think it's
funny,
unfair for a lot of people to turn around and be like, well, no, now this show is woke or this movie's woke. I watched the Marvels. It wasn't. I've seen movies where before, I've even read comics before. I'm like, yeah, I could kind of see that here. I feel like it's like another way of saying, well, I don't like this, so this is what I'm going to say because everybody is saying that. I want everybody to understand what I'm saying. I want everybody on board with my opinion.
mhm.
And it's like, look, if you don't like a movie, you don't like a movie. That's fine.
I haven't, in my honest opinion, I have seen what I'd call some agenda stuff, or like them trying to push something. Okay, in the Marvels, I wouldn't say that. Like, even with Captain Marvel, I wouldn't say that. Like,
I
you
agree.
know, like I could say there's been some stuff in the MCU where I could say, that they were trying to push this or this, but honestly, it's been very little, like from the MCU side of stuff. Like Disney, on the other hand, that's a different story. I
Yeah.
mean, they are kind of two different things.
You want water? Um, yeah, and like, look, I know I haven't seen it, and it doesn't look like something I want to see, to be honest with you. But like the new Snow White film, I know is bombing, and a lot of people are blaming the actress who plays Snow White. And again, it's more if she had an opinion. I don't. I'm gonna take a guess and say that at no point in the film does Snow White come up and start giving a
Political
talk
speech.
about why you need to vote or something like that. And if anything, they kind of, I guess Snow White maybe succeeded in pissing off both sides to that example, because you have one who's saying, well, support Palestine, and you have another one that's saying support Israel. So everybody gets pissed off, I guess.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah,
my whole thing is like their stretch of what they're doing. Like I can get behind some of the Disney live action like remakes, but for reasons like, and Snow White doesn't really classify like, and I get it's one of their like source strong stories, but in my view, and this is my opinion, it's not one of the ones that I need to see live action. Like, it's a fairy tale story to begin with. It worked in animation kind of thing.
Hmm.
I'm not saying this applies to everything because there are like, I mean, like in my opinion, Lilo and Stitch is a good version of them. Because it is kind of already sci-fi. It'd be a different story if Snow White had more of the medieval flavoring. I mean, it's pretty much just a rom-com, that they animated kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean the live action. To be honest with you, I haven't been thrilled with. I know we saw Beauty and the Beast.
Cinderella,
I feel like we
Jungle
saw
Book.
Cinderella. I hadn't seen Jungle Book because when it got to like Jungle Book and Lion King, I'm like, it's not
Jungle Book
really
was actually one of my
live action.
favorites.
Yeah, but
No,
it's
it's
like it's
not.
not really live action. Just say
No.
it's a reimagining. Um, I didn't see Aladdin. They did Aladdin. Yeah, Will Smith. I didn't see that one. Yeah, we watched Pinocchio, which was absolutely terrible. Like, and I think we watched it like either right before or right after we'd watched Love and Thunder. So it was like this is aggravation on top of aggravation for me.
There's a bunch of them that I haven't even bothered to see because either they didn't appeal to me or I'm just not interested. Like I do like the I love all the animated Disney movies that we've gotten over time. But
Mm-hmm.
like whether or not I wanted to, that's like I love Aladdin. I'm a huge. I know the soundtrack by heart. I can sing it and I give it like I played the games back in the day. I was super into it. It's
Oh
part of
yeah,
the reason I'm into Indian women. All right, so the live action version is a different story. Like not only was I not excited for it, and it had nothing to do with casting or anything. Like just the idea of it from the get go, I was like, kind of why? But then, like, I have tried to watch it, and I usually make it past the bizarre scene, which is like 10 minutes into it, and it's not that I don't like it or it's bad, or it's just, it's more on the lines of, I've seen this before, but, and then
yeah,
I know my brother enjoys it and it has its fans and stuff like that. But for me, there's only been a few that where I'm like the Jungle Book, and that's why because it was more like for me it was more reimagining versus the live action version. But
mm-hmm.
and for me, that one was good. But that's like Lion King. I don't need or want to see that in live action. Like I was
Yeah,
fine with the animated kind of thing.
yeah. But Pinocchio is an
Honestly, like
atrocious.
in Disney's whole repertoire, there's very few that I would actually go for the live action treatment. And we're talking about like they're bizarre or so sci-fi or whatever. That's the only reason why I pick them. And it's like Atlantis, like Lilo and Stitch, like
Mm-hmm.
Meet the Robinsons, like you, you know, because they are like they already kind of have that fantastical, So I mean, it makes sense to do it in a live action version. The other ones, like you're kind of doing the same thing with anime. It's like making the Lion King. I mean, you still have to animate their mouths. Like you have to get them to talk. Like
Yeah.
that's not what they do in real life. Like
So I'm trying to think while you're talking about. Are there any Disney animation films that I'd want to see live action at this point? I haven't seen the original Lilo and Stitch.
oh, what?
Yeah, I.
That's actually one of my top favorite Disney. Like, I mean, you're talking about growing up. I love Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and all that. But like when we
Mhm.
started getting closer to the 2000s, like for me, Disney and their storytelling in that regard has not failed because, like, I mean, there's so many greats along the way. Like Tangled was really good. Lilo and Stitch.
Mhm.
Like Moana. I mean, Lilo and Stitch, Moana are probably like my top two Disney favorites of all time. And Moana had a lot related to my kids, but
Hmm.
Lilo and Stitch, I saw that as a grown adult by myself in the theaters, and like I just it's such a fun. I mean, it has everything that you want out of a Disney story, and the way they animated it, portrayed it, like it has one of my favorite lines to date, and it's just this this alien saying, "Educate yourself."
Hmm. See, there was a whole span of Disney movies I missed, like around the early 2000s, probably around that time period. And then, yeah, no, Trev said it best. Like right now, I shouldn't say right now. We started it, and this is probably actually why we haven't seen Jungle Book or anything. We're like, look, we're not going to watch any kids movies, only because we know that at some point that's all we're going to be able to really sit down and watch. And we're slowly getting there. My son is into. See if I could say it without him flipping out. He's really into Blippi at the moment.
Mhm.
So if he's awake, that's what is on right now.
I have Blimpie. I'm looking at a Blimpie sticker right now. What do you call it? No, but okay. So there's a couple recommendations I can do for you, not only as a parent, because I agree you're gonna like. Because I remember that, like, there's going to be those animated movies that your kids are going to watch, and they're going to watch them into the ground. So you're going to see it like a million times because of that. Like, eh, okay, on one note, your kids are only going to focus on like what's known out there. And there is a lot of like animated stuff that comes out that's just not heavily advertised. But I could tell you as a father, one of the first things I did when my kids got to viewing age was to go back and show them the classics that I grew up with, even some of the scarier ones like Secret of Nymph and Fern Gully. And of course, when they were around, of a good age, to comprehend and stuff like that. But like I did the Disney classics, like Dumbo and, and stuff like that, because that I think it generally brings up good values within that kid, them seeing, because back then Disney did have extremely great values in their movies of what
Yeah.
family was supposed to be, or what a chivalrous person was supposed to be, or what the hero was supposed to do, or what a villain um
Yeah.
no, but Lilo and Stitch, when your boy gets up, I'd say 4 and 5 or grade 8, but definitely watch Lilo and Stitch, and Wife too, because it is a fantastic movie, and shit, I want to say like 2 of the messages in the movie are just wonderful, beautiful messages that will probably stay with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Like I know people keep saying to me, "Oh, you have to watch Up. You're gonna cry." I was like, I'll wait until my kids are asking for that. Like that's not a selling piece for me. Like I was like, okay, I will do it when I was like, hey, I want to watch this.
Up is a masterpiece in its own right, but for me, it was like a one-time watch. It's not something that like I would continually like, and I don't think my kids did either. I think there are parts of Up that are extremely like funny and rewatchable, but the overall story, what it's about, it is kind of sad. It's also very romantic. It's not, it's not all sad, but
Yeah.
Cliff. No, but I mean, when it comes to Disney, like, and I have a love and hate relationship with Disney, especially when it comes to Disney Star Wars and Disney Marvel. But with Disney, like the main property, it's like it's almost the way I view comic book stuff. If it's comic book related, I watch it as long as it's a show, animated, whatever. I feel like, especially being on due diligence as far as being on YouTube and stuff like that, and being an influencer or whatever,
Yes.
Okay, so with Disney, I do the same thing. Like all Disney movies that come out, I either watch them or like I might not go see day one in the theater, but like I either watch them as soon as they're streaming or.
You know what? I'm trying to get my son to watch now. We have a relative that gave us a bunch of old school Golden books.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know this, Golden books now are terrible. Like you go and it's like they printed it on, I think they recycled the Cheerios box. Like it's how thin and floppy. Like I picked it up in Target and I felt like it was going to disintegrate. And they're not cheap anymore. These used to be really inexpensive. So we got a batch of old school ones, and it's kind of funny. I was actually going to do a video on it just to see how outdated a lot of them are. But one that we miraculously have happened to be one of my favorite Disney movies growing up, Pete's Dragon. So trying to get my son to watch that a little bit. Yeah, but it didn't quite connect. Not yet. He's still young, though.
Nah.
And the new one I hear actually isn't bad. Even though it bombed, I heard it was actually pretty good.
I don't think I watched the remake of Pete's Dragon. I was happy with the original, because there's some that I get excited for when we get remakes and stuff like that. But for me, I think the original still works today because the way they animated it back then, it
Yeah.
features like the animation with the live action. Um, Now there's some that in especially in that old Disney repertoire, that I would love to like remake and stuff like that. But Pete's Dragon, not so much. So I can honestly I can't remember if I saw the remake or not. I might have, and I just don't remember it.
It's on Disney Plus. It was like we just haven't. Honestly, I've had zero time to watch streaming. I'm way behind on stuff. The kids are watching Blippi and Miss Rachel and all that good stuff. When I'm getting ready or whatnot, my wife is watching. Which one is it, honey? All the different iterations of Love is Blind.
Okay.
I think there's. How many are there? How many have you seen now?
I like Sweden.
We're on Sweden right now. Yeah, it's. I think what's the next one? Like Uganda or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mexico.
Uganda.
Yeah, no, that's an experiment all in itself. But I digress. Anyway, I've been bothering you for more than an hour now. I appreciate. Yeah, we always have fun. Are you? When are you going back to the Stephen King books?
Next week.
Next week. I was thinking of you because I don't know if you remember a while back I shared that there's that it's like a thrift used bookstore near us.
Mhm.
And they put up that somebody brought in a copy of what was King's pseudo name for like Running Man?
Richard Bachman.
Yeah, somebody brought in copies of the Bachman books.
I love the Bachman books. There's one that I specifically want that's out of print. It's like extremely hard to find. It's the one book that he exited out of his like library. It's called Rage. It's the one.
Yeah.
It's about a school shooting. That's why, because of current events, he's taken it out of his library. So now it's a pricey book.
Yeah, I respect that too, but it wasn't one of those because I knew if it was one of those, go up and grab that. But I think well, I shouldn't say I think they are pretty savvy with. All right, this is something that we're not going to sell for $5. And from what I understand, they have a lot of people who go in there who are Amazon resellers to the point where they had to say to people, you're not allowed to scan things any longer. But that's a whole thing.
I see that at thrift stores and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd seen that. I was like, oh, Mike could appreciate that.
I do. There's some good books in there. One of my favorites is The Long Walk, and we're about to get that movie, I think, coming up this year.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a Running Man. Yeah,
they are.
Running Man remake. Yeah, that I don't mind because that was one of my favorite movies growing up.
I love the Running Man. Yeah, with
yeah.
Arnold.
And I think if they do it well, they could do some interesting things. Given what we have now with like reality TV and whatnot.
I think it's a perfect fit for now because you talk about popularity of like stuff like The Hunger Games, Squid Games, stuff like that, concepts like that, of like this game show where you could die within it. No, I think it's the perfect time. Yeah, I love Running.
There we go. It's a great film and dance movie. You're right, Wellbore. You know who they need to have as the host though, if they really want to bring it to date. I think you got to go Seacrest.
I don't know. There's a couple I can pick. That like I'm trying to think. My first thought goes to Howie Mandel, like make a deal kind of thing.
I could see him playing a good villain, but I think that's why Seacrest would work well because the only other movie we saw him in that I'm aware of at least was Knocked Up. He's just on every show now at this point, at least at some point.
No, because I was like scanning of all the. No, I know who I want. I want Wayne Brady, and Wayne Brady's already done that whole like where he's usually seen as a good guy, but he's also been portrayed as like a villain. Thanks
Yeah,
to
remember
Dave
Chappelle's show.
Yeah. I want Brady. Like I think that because you have to have that person that's just generally nice, where everybody loves them, but at the same time, like you know, he could be that extremely vile villain kind of thing. I think Brady would pull it off like amazingly.
Maybe
There's a bunch of.
maybe Drew Carey, because I could see him playing a
I
good
was thinking
villain.
Drew Carey. I was
Yeah.
also going Conan O'Brien. Like Conan O'Brien, I mean, you talk about how like and how he would kill it, like coming off as the villain. Like he is so friendly, like as far as comedic and stuff like that. But like he could turn on like the drop of a dime, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, he did some great appearances on 30 Rock, where I could definitely see him using some of that in there.
Shit, at the Oscar, he was fantastic at that.
I didn't watch that, to be honest with you, but
Oh, it was funny as hell.
Yeah.
Like he had this one where he was supposed to be switching like costumes, and in the middle of it he gets stuck, and that's the whole gag. Is he, you know, he's putting on different things, but he still has the face makeup from this other get up. No, it was fun.
okay, good. I was going to ask you to do that. Well, I have to cut out, Mike, but I appreciate you coming in here.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder, everybody, too, I didn't mention this at the top of the hour. Conjury, A Prayer for the Dying, on sale now. Shipping very, very soon, I think within the next week or so. Legacy Comics with an X.com to order yours. It's not too late. And, you know, as I've said before, too, Pat Hickey, the writer, and I, we want to be on shows. So if you have a show and you want a guest, we'll come and we'll talk. And I'm, you know, trying to be a little flexible as far as with the timing goes, doing some stuff during the week too. It just takes a little bit of planning. But Mike, I want to thank you for coming on. Hey, buddy, do you want to do your Hulk impression for everybody before we go? What sound does a Hulk make? I don't know if anybody heard it.
Yeah,
But his Batman, his Batman one is the same. What does Batman say? Oh, what is it? Oh, he's doing it now. I'm Batman. He's close. I'm Batman. He's tired. But Mike, thanks for hanging out with me, and everybody, thanks for hanging out with us here. I appreciate everybody doing so. See you in the live show in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Bye.
Peace, love, and comics.